Just gonna go over a couple more passages in the book that I guess I missed. The book again is Clash of Extremes, Economic Origins of the Civil War by Mark Engel. It's a good book. Once again, a lot of this was kind of brushing up for me. Most of these notions and basic tenets I've been quite familiar with for quite some time. But when I got this book, I realized it was a good book and there was some new stuff to learn. And I certainly recommend it, guys. Again, I got it from the gift shop in the museum at the visitor center. So it's more or less officially sponsored. Keep that in mind. The story set forth in Clash of Extremes begins with the era from 1820 to 1850 and the unifying influence of the national economy. Business activity during these decades brought together the North and the South for 5 reasons. First, trade along the Mississippi and its tributaries gave the Northwest and Southwest a shared outlook and a common set of interests. Second, the border states, which comprised the northern reaches of the slave regime, had strong and growing ties with the North. These commonwealths saw few benefits and many drawbacks to clashes with the free states. Third, the growth of textile manufacturing and the cotton trade linked the mill owners and merchants of the North with the planters of the South, something I've gone over quite a bit by now. This alliance, complains Massachusetts Senator Charles Sumner, joined the Lords of the Lash and the Lords of the Loom. Fourth, the buoyant economy of the Southwest reinforced the case for the Union. The region boasted fresh soils and high returns, as well as a deep appreciation for the role the federal government played in pushing back natives, Spaniards, and Mexicans. Native Americans, Spaniards, and Mexicans. Finally, the burgeoning economy fostered similar divisions in every state, creating the foundation for 2 national parties. Throughout the United States, prosperous farmers, planters, and businessmen came together to support the Whigs. At the same time, urban workers and poorer farmers, individuals who felt excluded by the new exchanges, backed the Democratic Party. While the 2 parties battled each other vigorously over economic issues, both had adherents throughout the country and both shared a common belief in a unified nation. By mid-century, new patterns of commerce and new attitudes had emerged, shattering the unities of the earlier era and providing the basis for a decade of increasingly bitter sectional politics. In the North, the rise of the Great Lakes economy changed the outlook of many in the region from western New York to Wisconsin, and that's one big part of this book that I think is really noteworthy and not many people have really thought about or explored. The effect of the Great Lakes states and the Great Lakes economy, specifically linking New York City via the west by the Erie Canal. Producers in the Northwest now conducted most of their business along an east-west axis that began with the lakes and included the Erie Canal and New York City, as I just mentioned. The booming lake economy required extensive spending on the waterways, higher tariffs to pay for those improvements, and an active federal government to oversee these programs. Using the language of nationalism, individuals in this region demanded the federal government assist the growth of the northern economy. Money, money, money. Reflecting their roots, Republicans enunciated both anti-slavery and economic policies, but their clear priority was northern growth rather than helping African Americans. Even more fervently than other Northerners, Republicans condemned slavery. Gotta turn the page. Citing the Declaration of Independence and its affirmation that all men are created equal. But the only significant initiative Republicans advocated to assist blacks was Free Soil, a program that furthered both economic and humanitarian goals. Declaring the new territories off limits to slaveholders, this policy assisted northern farmers at the same time that it struck a blow against slavery by limiting its expansion. Mainstream Republicans reportedly refused to condemn the Fugitive Slave Act, the interstate slave trade, or slavery in the District of Columbia and federal shipyards. The party acquiesced in the racism that defined Northern society. Although eschewing programs to help blacks, Republicans vigorously supported economic initiatives including higher tariffs, free homesteads, internal improvements, land-grant colleges, and the Transcontinental Railroad. There are a bunch of bridesmaids hanging out here. It's funny as heck. Alright, I gotta find my next page. Alright. This is some good stuff here. Working men and women in the town shared that was from an earlier chapter, basically probably the introduction. Now I am on page 30. Working men and women in the town shared many of the same attitudes as the poorer farmers. Both groups felt themselves outsiders in an expanding economy. Take note of that. Both groups felt themselves outsiders in an expanding economy. These decades were marked by a widening gulf between employer and employees. As I've mentioned, labor, money, labor, money, labor, money. In the colonial period, master craftsmen and journeymen had labored and often lived together. They marched side by side in parades and perceived no conflict of interests. However, during the first decades of the 19th century, the structure of work and the outlook of workers changed. Shoemaking and the men's clothing industry, for example, were transformed by the increasing division of labor. Where a single individual had once crafted a pair of shoes or stitched a complete shirt, now the tasks were more narrowly defined. One individual might only attach soles or sew on collars. Merchant capitalists financed and oversaw the work of many. In other industries such as cotton textiles and iron making, capitalists erected large establishments and hired many employees. Working people now came together in unions, even if many of these efforts were short-lived and defined themselves in opposition to their bosses. These workers and less wealthy farmers shared a common viewpoint, often called Old Republican Outlook. This ideology pointed back to an idealized early republic where hardworking farmers and skilled artisans lived comfortable lives, untroubled by banks, paper money, monopolies, speculators, or the oppressive hand of government. Just as wealthier farmers and merchants came together under the Whig banner, so these laborers and poorer farmers became the mainstay of a competing national organization, the Democratic Party. Let that sink in for a minute. Let that sink in for a minute. I'll repeat the last part. Just as the wealthier farmers and merchants came together under the Whig banner, or i.e. the nascent Republican Party, the laborers and poorer farmers became the mainstay of a competing national organization, the Democratic Party. So there we have it. What did Republicans really represent in the mid-19th century? Did they truly represent nothing but a token platform of not enfranchising blacks, but freeing the slaves? Was that their true goal? Or was their true goal the booming economy, the cities in the north, the manufacturing, the industries, the new factories? Ask yourself honestly. You don't have to give me your answer, okay? Ask yourself honestly. What did they really represent? What was the result after the Civil War? Okay? What really mattered after the Civil War? Because as the book mentioned and as I've mentioned, the issue of freeing the slaves, had been achieved, right? But, enfranchising blacks, okay, equal rights and stuff like that weren't even mentioned. The issue of race altogether was dropped like a rock, okay? And Republicans moved on to support the banks, the booming economy, and industry. Give it some thought. These girls are funny. I'll see you on the next one, guys.